vouch for his veracity as a confidential human source codenamed Mitch. Mitch the Snitch, how appropriate. All right, we're going to have much more on all of this a little bit later, but it is time now to get to our very first guest and everything that went on up on Capitol Hill this week. A lot of important stuff did get done, but the real work has yet to begin when it comes to building that big, beautiful bill. And joining us now to talk about all of that is Congresswoman representing the great state of Iowa, Marionette Miller-Meeks. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
Amanda, great to be with you. And all I can say about these revolutions are shocking that there would be gambling in Casablanca. I mean, it's just unreal, the level of deception and corruption that is being, unearthed, which we knew existed. And I don't know how these people look themselves in the mirror, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's such an indictment on the field of journalism. And the field of journalism is something that Capitol Hill has to pay attention to because you work kind of hand in glove when it comes to reporting. So for you as a member of Congress, when you see a story like this and you see how false it was, and the fact that the FBI continued using that source, even though they knew that he had either lied or was very, very wrong about it.
Well, in addition to which, what you and John do, every single day is to be a check on government. You're the fourth estate. And it's not supposed to be government only by Republicans. It's government in general. That's how you expose corruption. That's how you stop corruption. That's what makes a deterrent, is that things like this will get exposed. But when you have the media colluding with the government against a particular party and a particular president, no wonder the media and government has such low approval ratings. It's just, as I said, it would be shocking. But it is also just tremendously disappointing, and it's one of the reasons that we have to stop the weaponization of government. And when I get yelled at and, I have protests all over my district and take fake town halls talking to me, and had a person in my office waiting in my office until I came in on fly-in day on Monday, who waited there so they could tell me how concerned they were about democracy. And all I can say is that it was not this administration or this president, it's not President Trump that was pressuring private companies to censor, to deplatform, to suppress information. That was the Biden administration. That was the Democrats with majorities in the House and the Senate and the White House. Meanwhile, we respect free speech, we respect freedom to association, and democracy is alive and well under the Trump administration. Unreal.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And look no further than the Tesla dealerships and Tesla owners across this country whose vehicles are getting torched and keyed and all manner of vandalism on them. But it's the party of inclusion, right? I want to ask you, let's switch to a happier subject. The SAVE Act that you co-sponsored passed through the House. Congratulations to you. A very, very important bill. But Congresswoman, I continue to hear Democrats say, oh, my goodness, these poor married women. First of all, when have Democrats cared about married women? I'll just leave that there.
Amen.
Yeah. When have they cared about that? And that actually has nothing to do with this, because the example that I heard from Eric Swalwell was, what if you get married and your birth certificate doesn't match what your voter ID says? There shouldn't be a problem. Before you're married, that's before you change your name, so that's not even a valid comparison. But you only need these documents to actually register. You don't have to show up with your birth certificate in hand.
Exactly. You need your birth, it's not unusual to need your birth certificate for various things. No. You need it. And, I had people on social media saying, well, what does your birth certificate show? My birth certificate shows Hair Long, California, USA. That's right. What my birth certificate shows, that I am a U.S. citizen born in the United States. This should not be a question to talk about voter oppression, because we're going to ask people for proof of citizenship before they can register to vote or vote in our federal elections. Think about this. All through COVID, you had to show vaccine proof, vaccine passport to eat, to go into a hotel, to catch a plane. But yet we want to talk about the most important thing we do for our democracy, which is to vote. They already want, illegal aliens to vote in local elections, but in federal elections, absolutely not. I'm proud to have co-sponsored the bill. It's already illegal to be done. We just need to emphasize that we should not be having federal government agencies like under the Biden administration's push to have any federal government agency register people to vote whether they were citizens or not. We have to stop this. We have to stop this now. And I hope that there are 7 courageous Democrat senators who will vote on this on the Senate side. But we need to get this. It's over in the Senate now. I proudly co-sponsored it, proudly voted for it, just like we're codifying President Trump's executive orders. After the inauguration in February, I instructed my staff to start going through the executive orders so we can start to codify them. So we put across English as the official language, and we're going through more of them now as we talk, what we're doing on coal and energy. But yeah, it's just insane to me that they do not see, number one, the hypocrisy, which they don't care about. Number two, they continue to lie. Married women have no problem with voting. You'll continue to be able to vote. It's amazing to me what stories they come up with. But, you know, they did the whole Russian collusion hoax, so I guess this is in the same vein.
Indeed, indeed. And I think the count that I saw for Democrats is that it was 208 who voted against this. And I guess, Congresswoman, I'm just trying to figure out, because it doesn't matter if you look at Gallup, Quinnipiac, Susquehanna, Harvard Harris Caps, any of these polling companies, and it's anywhere from 81 to 83% of Americans who support having to show an ID when you vote. So for a Democrat who voted against this, what do they go back and tell their district is the reason that they voted against what their district wants? Exactly.
It is hugely popular, number one. So is voter ID. And every time we pass voter integrity election law changes in Iowa, we had more people voting in the next election. When people know that their vote counts, that their vote is secure, they vote. So it actually helps people to get out to vote. So I don't know if the Democrats think that this is some kind of pro-immigrant stance. You want to know who else is supportive of both voter ID and no illegal aliens voting? Immigrants who came here legally, immigrants who have done the very hard process to assimilate, to learn the language, to learn the Constitution, to learn the laws of this country. They go through that long, protracted process, 10 to 12 to 16 years. We just have a friend who passed his test, and in 6 weeks will be going through the ceremony. Immigrants are also against illegal aliens voting. So they're not going to gain any support in the immigrant community by this either, and they're going to lose support. It's why their approval rating is down so low. But as I said, I'm proud to have supported this bill. I would continue to support the election integrity laws that we're putting across, detection of fraud, and making sure that our voters know that their vote counts, that it's confidential, and that we are increasing people's ability to vote and reducing fraud. We're going to make it easy to vote, hard to cheat.
Easier to vote, harder to cheat. I love that mantra. And that is exactly what President Trump is doing. And I applaud you for basically taking, these executive orders, it seems like, for the Republican majority, go from Donald Trump's desk to the desk of people like you so that you guys can draft legislation. I feel like that process is probably, or that view of that process is probably pretty accurate.
Absolutely. That's what needs to happen. We don't need another president coming in 3 years and doing away with all the good work we have. We saw what happened on the border with President Biden. And so I think it's very important that we codify this. One of the things that we're doing in the budget reconciliation will be work on the border. We'll be codifying some of these executive orders. The executive orders got things done rapidly and got the ball moving. Now it's up to us to do the job in Congress, and we're going to do exactly that. We're up to the task.
Absolutely. All right. With respect to the big, beautiful bill, you guys passed the framework, 216 to 214. So just a skinny majority with that, but the real work begins now, right?
Absolutely. It was hugely important for us to get this across the finish line, to get this, collaboration with the Senate and the House. So now that has passed both chambers, it goes to the 10 committees in the House, and then it will go to the relevant committees and the Senate side. We'll work on what we have to do for energy, for border, for the fencing and the requisite technology, energy dominance, as I said, and most importantly, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And then those things that President Trump talked about when he was on the campaign trail: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. So we're going to see how much we can get into this bill. we'll have to look at, as I said, 10 committees will be looking at how do they either generate revenue by getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, which can cause the government to work more efficiently and more effectively, or to generate revenue, such as from the sale of spectrum or the sale of leases, which the Biden administration hadn't done. I think it was under a handful of leases on public lands for oil and gas or other types of energy production. So we will be going through that. From my standpoint, we can generate revenue by selling off some of the buildings in Washington, D.C. that the government owns where the federal government employees weren't coming into work. So there are assets that we have that we can sell and generate revenue in order to reauthorize Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and then to do those other things I talked about that President Trump promised.
Right. Okay, one more thing, because I know that you retired from the Army as a lieutenant colonel. You served our nation for over 20 years. $1 trillion budget for defense spending. Good idea?
Well, when you look at what's happened with the Chinese Communist Party, where they are on artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, especially with the release of DeepSeek, I think we really have to take serious the challenges we have to our national security. Certainly, energy is one of those. So being energy dominant, critically important to our country to be energy dominant and American energy dominant. So that's important. But we really have a challenge with the Chinese Communist Party. We have to replace weapons systems. We have to, increase energy production. And that's going to require that we have a robust defense. Remember, it was Ronald Reagan under peace through strength that caused the collapse of the Soviet Union. These, Russia and Iran and China have, gained under a weak president, Biden. They have gained strength, and we need to be able to counter that. So strong economy is important. Energy dominance is important. Secure borders. But we do need to have the defense capabilities, because we know that having a ready and capable offense, but the best offense is good defense. So we want to deter wars and deter aggression abroad.
Absolutely. And all four of those elements bolster each other. So it's a good plan going forward. Congresswoman Marionette Miller-Meeks, always a joy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful Easter.
Same to you. Same to you. All right, everybody, we have more of the news happening on Capitol Hill with one of the newest Republicans in the House. Congressman Randy Fine in the House, and he's going to be on the show in just a moment.
Hey folks, if you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? I know the answer. That's the legal proof, of course, that you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. That's not a good situation. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you're not even going to know about it until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use the promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com right now and use the promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JTN.
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you know, I left my post in Los Angeles to come here to Washington to work for John Solomon. He and I are obviously partners on this TV show, but I now work for him as his White House correspondent. And I made that huge move across the country because I have such a tremendous amount of respect for the work that John Solomon does and has done for literally decades in the world of journalism. And I know that by association, when John hires someone to do investigatory work for him, I know that that person is extremely worthy of the job and the task before him. And tonight is a great example because Jerry Dunleavy came to us at Just the News with much fanfare. I don't even know if he knows that, but everybody was really excited about him coming here because of the great work that he does. And he has been finding a ton of information in these now declassified Crossfire Hurricane documents. So we are going to bring him in to talk about that report. And you can find it all, of course, over on justthenews.com. But Chief Investigative Correspondent here at Just the News, Jerry Dunleavy. Jerry, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. You're too kind. It is great to be at Just the News. You and the other colleagues there are amazing, and John, obviously the best in the business.
Yeah, well, we love having you here, and I love the credibility that you bring to this organization because there are a lot of previously credible organizations out there, some of them right up the road from us, who have faltered in the last, I would say, 10 years. I think that's when it's kind of reached a fever pitch as far as bias in reporting. Washington Post has not escaped that, of course, and this story centralizes on them. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so obviously, as we all now know, FBI Director Kash Patel handed over to Congress the declassified Crossfire Hurricane binder that President Trump had sought to declassify at the end of his first term, but was thwarted first by his own Justice Department and then 4 years of the Biden DOJ. But that information was handed over to Congress. Just the News obtained it as well, and we made it public. Amongst those documents, John and I found a new interview, newly released declassified interview that NSA Chief and Admiral Mike Rogers had given to Mueller's investigators back in 2017. And in this interview, Mike Rogers shot down a Washington Post story related to the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. And the reason why Mike Rogers was able to shoot that down is that the story was about him. The Washington Post had made a series of claims about what Trump had asked Mike Rogers to do, what he had told Mike Rogers to say related to the collusion saga during a March 2017 phone call. And Mike Rogers said to Mueller's investigators, we now know, that the Washington Post story was wrong. It was false. It mischaracterized what he was saying. This is interesting for a lot of reasons because obviously, especially in 2017, but throughout Trump's first term, the Russia collusion saga was being pushed by every corporate media outlet that you could think of. The New York Times and the Washington Post were top of that list, and they both won Pulitzer Prizes for their coverage of the collusion hoax, their role, frankly, in pushing the collusion hoax. And this story that we now know Mike Rogers shot down was one of those stories that the Washington Post won its Pulitzer Prize award based on. And President Trump is actually in the midst of a defamation lawsuit against the Pulitzer Prize board for doubling down on its award to all of these outlets, even though it's now clear, based on the results of the Mueller investigation, where he was not able to establish any criminal collusion, DOJ Inspector General Horowitz's investigation, where he laid out how just the politicization within the FBI and the lack of corroboration they had for anything they were doing with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And then, of course, Durham's investigation that just helped sort of blow this all apart and show that not only was there no evidence of collusion unearthed, but they never had any evidence of collusion, and they knew that they didn't, and they pushed forward on this anyway. And so this story now by Just the News that we put out today helps show pretty definitively that one of the stories that won a Pulitzer Prize, helping push this sort of frenzy in Washington, D.C. about Trump-Russia collusion, that story was based on nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. It's obviously damning for the industry of journalism. So this story came out, I think it was published in WAPO May of 2017. I know we don't know now if they knew that this was a false story when they published it. But do you think we will? Do you think that in subsequent document releases, or maybe we have to go a different avenue? Maybe we have to target people at Washington Post or former, maybe disgruntled employees. How do we find out if they actually knew that they were publishing something false?
It's going to be tough to tell. I can tell you that this is one of the number of questions that I posed to the Washington Post today and didn't get an answer on.
Oh, shocking.
So hopefully we do get some sort of clarity from them. I asked them, did you know at the time that your story was being disputed by the person who was on the phone call with President Trump? I asked them if they learned at any point that Mike Rogers had disputed their story. And then I, of course, asked them if they're now going to issue a correction on their story, so that anyone that revisits this story in the future will know that the central allegation in the story about this phone call between Trump and his National Security Agency director, so that anyone that visits in the future will know that that Rogers said that the story isn't true. So yeah, we'll find out. But yeah, this is a story that that they won a Pulitzer Prize on. And so I also asked the Pulitzer Prize Board, the Pulitzer Prize Board claims that they did a review of all of these stories and found that they were all sound and great and groundbreaking and well-sourced. I asked them, well, here's one of their stories has been knocked down by the main subject of the story. So What are you guys going to do now?
Well, I imagine that when Washington Post got your email today, they saw Jerry Dunleavy in the sender box and were already a little nervous about responding to you. Very quickly before I let you go, Jerry, you've been in this industry for a while. You have done such great work and revealed some really, really incredible things in this job. For you as a journalist, does seeing this story and seeing how Washington Post has reacted and seeing how the Pulitzer Board has reacted, does it dull the shine of a Pulitzer for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, a Pulitzer is meaningless and worthless. I mean, it's just, it's
so yeah,
it's just you look at the awards given to the New York Times and the Washington Post. They got the award in 2018 for their reporting in 2017. Yeah. And today I spent some time going through all of those stories. And, the role that the media played in helping keep this baseless story of collusion going, the role that the media played in this cannot be understated, because by the time that early 2017 rolled around, the FBI and the U.S. intelligence community knew that there was nothing to these claims of Russian collusion. They knew that the Steele dossier was baseless, had no merit to it, was fake. But it was the media that played a significant role in keeping this thing going, in helping the FBI and the people pushing this get this turned into a special counsel investigation and letting it then drag on for 2 more years, despite there being no evidence. And so Yeah, Pulitzer, not quite so valuable anymore because of the central role that the media played in pushing one of the bigger political scandals in modern history.
I think you're right. I think it would have flatlined if the mainstream media had not continued defibrillating it and bringing it back to life. Spot on, Jerry Dunleavy, as always. You know what? If the Pulitzer had credibility once again, I would say you should get them. You should get one.
You are too kind yet again. But thank you very much.
Jerry, I know that you were planning on hitting the road with your family. I hope we didn't delay you too much. Tell your family that we very much appreciate it.
Appreciate being on anytime.
Right.
Thank you
so
Monday.
Much. All right, everybody, coming up, the new Congressman Randy Fine from the great state of Florida is going to be here. Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. We have a lot more for you on the congressional front with one of Congress's newest members. He won one of those special elections down in Florida recently. Now, Congressman Randy Fine. Congressman, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you, and I know that for some members of Congress, the first week can be about as exciting as watching paint dry, but this time around, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah, it was. Look, we're not only trying to get our district offices set up, our D.C. office set up, but we walked into a real big week in Congress and was excited that my vote was the deciding vote in making sure we could get President Trump's big, beautiful reconciliation bill moving forward in the process. So it was a heck of a week.
Absolutely. To be that deciding vote, I feel like that is that should add an extra pin to your lapel, I feel like. Regarding that big, beautiful bill, when it comes to what will inevitably be some horse trading, some robbing Peter to pay Paul, how cantankerous do you anticipate, or how rancorous, I guess I should say, do you anticipate that process is going to be moving through the summer?
Well, I think it depends on how people think about this. If they think about politics or they think about their children. See, I look at this very simply. Every dollar we borrow that we don't have is a dollar that we are expecting our children, not just children in a theoretical sense, the children that we have living with us at home, that they have to pay back. And it is not generous, and it is not kind, and it is not nice to take money from your kids to pay for things that you want to buy today. So I think if people have the right approach and how they think about it, we ought to be able to find an awful lot of cuts to make sure we get our budget in balance.
Yeah, and something that would save the American people a lot of money and also a lot of heartache when it comes to crime coming across the border is making sure that there is not wholesale import on illegal immigrants across our southern border for the purpose of voting. And you guys accomplished that this week with the Save Vote. Very important to election integrity. Democrats have wasted no time acting like this is an oppression move by Republicans. Tell us about it.
Well, look, Democrats lie. They can't win honestly, so they have to cheat. And I think we saw data this week that suggested there are millions of illegal immigrants that have been given Social Security numbers, and which you can do all sorts of things with. The fact of the matter is, it is not an unreasonable expectation to ask someone to prove that they're an American in order to get the most important right that we have as citizens, the right to vote. And why people are so concerned about people having to prove that they're Americans, I can't understand it. If you can't prove that you're an American, you shouldn't be able to vote. This shouldn't be controversial. And the only reason I can see the Democrats oppose it is they want to cheat.
I think that's probably spot on. And I think that's what a lot of Americans view it as. It's become pretty transparent at this point. I want to ask you about what is going to be taking place this weekend. Supposedly direct talks with Iran. Now, President Trump and the White House claim that these are going to be direct. Iran keeps countering, saying they're going to be indirect. I happen to know from Iran negotiations in the past that they want them to be indirect because they don't want to be held accountable face to face for basically flouting everything that they have ever promised to do. What do you want to see come from these talks this weekend?
Well, I think I want a few things. Number one, we want to make sure Iran never has a nuclear weapon, and that has to be an issue, and that has to be resolved 100%. Number two is Iran has got to stop funding terrorism around the Middle East and around the globe. And number three is Iran has to demand that their proxies, Hamas, release the 59 hostages that they are still holding in Gaza. I mean, those are the three key things. And I hope President Trump tells them, if you don't do it, you're not going to like what comes next. Mm-hmm.
I want to stay on that topic, sort of a peripheral topic for a moment. Mahmoud Khalil, President Trump just got a big victory in the court saying that he can proceed, that this administration can proceed with deporting Mahmoud Khalil. To me, this is not a First Amendment issue. In a legal sense, it's perjury. He lied on his visa application saying he was coming here for education, but he clearly came here to sow discord and to be an activist leader. Does this send a strong enough message to folks on other college campuses that you can't intimidate and threaten Jewish students and blame it on the First Amendment?
Well, I hope so. I mean, look, I think the fundamental issue we have is two worldviews. Democrats believe that there are 7 billion people in the world who should all have the right to come to America whenever they want, act however they want, and get all the free stuff that they want. That's just a fantasy world of sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and pixie dust. I look at this very differently. If you come to America on a visa, you are our guest. And when I go into someone's house, I don't behave like a jerk. And what we've had is we've had Muslim terrorists come to the United States and act like jerks. They hate our country. They hate Israel. They hate our students. And look, as a Jewish American myself and one of a very small number of elected Jewish Republicans, I find the behavior offensive. If you want to trash Israel, if you want to trash our friends, if you want to threaten Jewish students, stay at home where it turns out you're oftentimes welcome to do it. But I'm thrilled that guy's being tossed out, and every other supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah and American-hating students should be rounded up and sent home tomorrow.
Absolutely. And, you know, in this instance, it's obviously someone who is deeply anti-Semitic, but it really doesn't matter which side we're talking about. But what's amazing to me is where the Democrat Party is right now. I don't think 10 or 20 years ago I could have predicted that Democrats would be defending keeping someone like this and others, because it's not just him, that they would be the ones defending keeping them in this country. Does it surprise you, this about face that has happened pretty precipitously?
Well, I think you've got a strain of the Democratic Party that hates America. I mean, I think they fundamentally believe that we are not a good place. And so they support people who hate it. I think it's very sad, and I don't believe all Democrats feel this way, but that is the very loud majority, and you can see it. They believe it's okay to destroy Elon Musk's cars or scream down us when they speak. You have this virulent, dangerous, anti-American group of people. And so they celebrate people like Mahmoud Khalil who hate America because they hate it themselves and they hate everything that makes up Western civilization, which fundamentally all of these things, all of these values that we have are Judeo-Christian values. They all start in the Old Testament. They all start with Jews. And so, of course, they hate all of these things. And I say, get them out of our country and send them home. We do not want to end up like Great Britain.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can protest peacefully in this country, but as we saw on numerous college campuses, blocking Jewish students from being able to attend their classes and live their lives and having them living in fear, that is not what the First Amendment is about. Congressman, before I let you go, I know you are very passionate about making those Trump tax cuts permanent. This is something that the American people, I think, are fully on board with, regardless of whether they will admit it or not. How on board do you think the Republican majority is with building those into this bill and making sure that they're locked in?
Well, I think they're on board with that. The challenge has been, I think, as I see it as the new guy, is cutting spending. I mean, you know, giving people more of their money back tends to be a popular thing to do. Cutting spending is harder. So I think that's where the challenges are going to be. But they shouldn't be hard. We shouldn't be giving 300-year-old Social Security. We shouldn't be sending $50 million boxes of condoms around the world. I mean, there is so much waste and abuse in Washington. I've just seen it in my first week there, just trying to become a federal employee, how crazy things are. And so there is plenty of opportunity to cut. Look, if I was a government worker that had been sitting at home for the last 4 years not doing much, I might be worried. But for Americans that pay the bills, there's a lot of good things to do. And I think we're going to get there when we get this bill done.
All right, before I let you go, you're looking at all of this with fresh eyes. Up on Capitol Hill, was it what you expected?
It's extraordinary to be in a place. You know, when I was 16 years old, I was a page for the House of Representatives for a year. To come back 35 years later and to put on my wall the seal of a member of Congress my mom suggested I buy 35 years ago, I thought she was crazy. Wow. It's been sitting in my closet for 35 years. To put that on the wall of my office, it's now a museum piece, apparently. That was a really special moment. A lot of people sacrifice a lot to do this job. And what I'm going to do is try to make God and my family proud of the work that I do.
Man, moms always know. They always kind of have a feeling about these things. Congressman Randy Fine, thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we've got a few more blocks, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. back to Just the News, no noise, everybody. Easter is right around the corner, and if you're looking for ways to give back, I want to share with you a company that is working toward a few great causes, donating to faith-based initiatives as well as conservation efforts. I am, of course, talking about Wire to Fish Coffee, one of our great sponsors here at Just the News. And joining us now to talk more about what they are doing from Wire to Fish, Leah Thomas. Leah, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Amanda.
All right, you just gave me some really great news that you guys are getting some global interest, people who want to build your brand out across the world and outside of U.S. shores.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We've had a couple of inquiries come in, and they say that they find our business model interesting because we give back and we care so much, and I think that's and we're making a ripple out there, and it's pretty exciting to think that we can be a global brand soon and really be impacting a lot of projects in a way major way than we are now.
Yeah, and you use the term ripple, which of course evokes visions of fishing, and that is a huge part of your platform. It's called You're called Wire to Fish. Tell us about some of those conservation efforts. I love the filter project.
Yes, we have an effort in Nairobi, Kenya, and honestly, we're going to get to go, I think, with the filter project in July. It's looking like they supply clean water filters to both the slums of Kitale and then a little rural area called Serende that they hope to pour about 3,500 filters into that area, and also just talk about Jesus with the people. So it's giving people clean water that are drinking out of a puddle and helping them live a better quality of life. And we're really excited about the opportunity to experience that particular project. Yeah. We also are partnering with some new camps to reach children in the summertime with the gospel. We expect to reach at least 500 kids at a mountain camp in Buffalo, Wyoming, outside of here this summer called Camp Bethel. And we also work with North Carolina to help them with their fisheries and planting wildlife in plant life. Sorry, can't plant wildlife, but it'd be cool if you could. Planting plant life into their fisheries so that their general ecosystems improve. And we're also just always looking for more projects in those conservation areas. They're a challenge to find. It's really interesting to me. We find that we can find a lot more faith-based stuff than conservation, but we still just scrape at all the edges we can find.
I know, and you guys do such important work. You mentioned the 3,500 filters. That's a lot of filters. How many people's worth of water does that clean?
Well, it's going to be a household of at least 4 typically. The filters last forever. I mean, they last years and years and years. The project itself is a $196,000 project, and they estimate that it'll take about 17 months to complete. We hope to accelerate that, especially if we can get some global distribution. We're really wanting to be able to move that along for them.
Yeah, and I know that when people make a purchase at Wire to Fish Coffee, that you guys donate a portion of those proceeds to the project, right?
We do. We give back 18% to faith-based initiatives, and the Filter Project falls into that just because of their aspect of spreading the gospel. I love that it hits both bases, though. And then we give another 8% to conservation initiatives around the United States. So we're committed to making the world better in a variety of ways, and we're growing. It's exciting.
I love that. So on the faith side of things, when you're in Nairobi and you're installing these filters and providing beautiful crystal clear water for these folks, and you're having these faith conversations, do you find that it's pretty easy to start that conversation?
I think it is. You know, one thing about these countries is they have a lot more belief in supernatural things. And so we find it's actually a little bit easier to talk to people about Jesus there and just how much he loves them and he's there for them in a very real way than we can in the United States so many times, which is ironic to me often. But we have a team of people on the ground that are trustworthy, which is also very critical because a lot of these areas have been spoiled by American missionaries that didn't have good intention. And so we try to get locals on the ground that are also very credible and love Jesus, and it just opens the door for us. And we do require that if they take the filter from us and accept the Lord, that we get the opportunity to come back and talk to them not only about God again, but also how to continually maintain and take care of their filters so that their families can enjoy clean water for a very long time.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up that aspect of spirituality, because I was having a conversation with someone who heads a ministry in Colorado, and he was talking about a lot of the folks who he deals with who are now Christians, but they are former Muslims. And he said so many of them, what brought them to Christ was seeing visions of Jesus. And I asked him why that so often happens, and he said it's because in Islam they are so wired to have their antenna up for visions and things like that it's just kind of, I don't want to say it's commonplace in their religion, but it's oftentimes why you see that more prevalent for former Muslims who have come over and become believers. Leah Thomas from Wired to Fish Coffee, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, to all of our viewers, go to wired2fishcoffee.com. You're going to get a 10% discount by using the code JUSTNEWS at checkout. All right, everybody, one more break, and then we will be back with our final segment. Welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of the show. I'm Amanda Head, and my co-host, as well as the editor-in-chief of Just the News, John Solomon. He's out on assignment tonight, but I'm going to reel it in for this night. But he's going to be back on Monday. All right, a lot of fretting has been going on in environmental circles since President Trump got elected. They say that they are worried about climate change. They say President Trump's regulatory cuts are going to hurt the environment. They claim President Trump's tariffs will too, and they are even saying that timber may be a scarce commodity somehow. Don't believe me? Well, here's Chris Matthews on that earlier this week.
I watched the issue of lumber. Now, you see, we get so much of our lumber, our 2x4s, from Canada. What's where we get it from? Canada. We get our newsprint from up there for newspapers. The fact is, we get it. What are we going to do? Have more lumber made in the United States now? What is our plan now? Oh, we're not going to import wood, so we're going to make more wood? We're going to create more wood? Is that it?
People use newsprint for toilet paper these days. Not sure if you got the memo, Chris Matthews, but everything's digital now. All right, yeah, so it's fairly easy to create more wood, right? You plant trees, and we do a pretty bang-up job of it already here. But joining me to discuss that and more, the communications director for Nature is Nonpartisan. I love that name, Amelia Joy. Amelia, thanks so much for having us, or thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
It's Friday. What can I say? All right, I want to get your take on Chris Matthews' take on wood scarcity.
Yeah, I mean, my response is yes, Chris, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to produce more timber right here in the United States of America. I mean, look, we can talk about timber, we can talk about energy, we can talk about where we get our food from. At the end of the day, what this issue is it's a national security issue. A country that relies on other nations for their energy, for their food, for their timber is not a secure nation. And so the initiative of this administration is to bring all of this back to America and to have trees grown in America, to have energy produced in America, to have food grown in America, and to support American industries. Additionally, we have a national forest health crisis in this country right now. We watched LA burn last year. And local and state leaders are saying that the National Forest Service is not helping them keep their forests healthy. So let's give that power back to the states. Let's make sure that we have healthy forests and we can continue to produce our own timber for generations to come.
You know, President Trump always donates his paycheck every quarter. Maybe he should send it to the National Forest Services. I feel like that would be a very worthy cause. Secretary Rollins, Agriculture Secretary, has announced these sweeping reforms to actually protect our national forests and to boost production of it here on American soil. Do you think that that's going to solve the problem?
I do. I think that it's more important now than ever for us to produce as much as we can right here in America. Americans have made it clear that they don't trust other nations to produce timber, to grow their food, to produce energy. And so President Trump and Secretary Rollins at the Department of Agriculture has made it a priority for timber and for food as well to start making sure we're producing it right here in America.
Yeah. I want to ask you about EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, something that he said recently, because the constant messaging that we hear from liberals, especially folks who are on the environmental left, is that you can't have a thriving economy and also protect our environment. Lee Zeldin says those things are not mutually exclusive. You can do both at the same time. Would you concur?
I absolutely agree with Administrator Zeldin. He's also been talking about the new mission of the EPA being to power the great American comeback. And I couldn't agree with him more. It's an outdated thought to say that you can't care about the environment and care about producing a thriving economy, especially in the greatest country in the world. And so this deregulation that we're seeing at the EPA, the way that I view it is it's step one. But step two needs to be replacing these outdated environmental initiatives, these initiatives that are wasting taxpayer dollars, are inflating the federal government. Let's reevaluate them. Let's replace them with something that actually works for the American people and scratches the itch for these people who do care about our national parks, who care about clean air, clean water, habitat restoration, caring for our wildlife, permitting reform. These are all things that President Trump and Administrator Zeldin have said that are a priority for this administration. And a vast majority of Americans expect action on the environment. And it's my hope, especially with Nature is Nonpartisan, that this administration will take the initiative to reach a hand across the aisle and replace these cuts in a way that's bipartisan, in hopes that a future administration won't have to overhaul the EPA again, won't have to go through another deregulatory process, won't have to review these initiatives once again decades from now, because we'll do it right this time, and we'll do it in a way that conserves America's natural beauty for future generations.
Yeah, I want to ask you about just the nature of your organization. Nature is Nonpartisan. We only got about 60 seconds left. Do you find that Republicans and conservatives care as much about the nature, as Democrats do?
I do. I mean, when you think about the conservation legacy of this nation, the first person that I think of is Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. I also think about our farmers and ranchers all across Western America. Absolutely. These are the people who are working in the land every day, who are the true stewards of the land. And there's no one in this country who cares about America's natural beauty and environment more than the people who rely on it for a living. And so conservatives and Democrats can really agree on more than we might expect when it comes to the environment. We just need to get them in the same room and talking about it to actually solve the problem.
Yeah, I think talking about it is the hardest part, getting them to actually have a conversation and not yell at each other. Amelia Joy, Communications Director for Nature is Nonpartisan. Thank you so much for joining me on this fabulous Friday. All right, that is all the time that we have for